Hey everybody, this is Rex Barrett League Project. How the heck are you? This specific article that I'm going to be sharing with you here in a minute, or I should say scribe, is thousands of years older than any scripture in the Holy Bible. Now, this specific scribe could be so old and actually go back hundreds of thousands of years because it is called the Sumerian king list. Now, the Sumerian king list is over 200,000 years in records in detail. Now, one thing we know about the Sumerians is they were extremely good at keeping records and track of virtually everything that was important to them. And one of the things that was extremely important to the Sumerians was their lineage. So the Sumerian king list, when you actually read the length of some of these kings of 64,800 years, just that one king rulership is nothing short of extraordinary. It actually would completely revolutionize the mindset of how long we can live. And then you look at our DNA, and then it makes you wonder if the Sumerians were the ones that actually manipulated our not the Sumerians, but the Anunnaki were the ones that manipulated our DNA to lower our lifespan. Matter of fact, it talks about that in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So there you have it. At one point in time, our DNA was created to live in perpetuity, and because the manipulator didn't like the way that his slaves were working, well, that's when the lifespan was changed. And I actually even talked about that in a previous podcast that I did. If you haven't listened to it already, I'd definitely make sure to go back and listen to it. It's one of the more recent podcasts, the Sumerian translation. And let's go back to the credits here for a minute, because one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is this was a group of 10 highly educated that were a part of the project. Not to mention all the additional resources and information before that had been compiled, different funding from not only the Arts and Humanitarian Research Board, there's several other ones down there, the University of Oxford, the British Academy, the Hungarian Academy of Science, and I've read a couple comments where people say, well, I'm not going to trust anything from that university because Freemasons are there. So what? Freemasons are all over the place. And Freemasons, a lot of them are very intelligent, and that's why they have specific degrees, because they got to different levels based on, well, who you know. It's also what you know. And yes, a lot of it's who you know. Am I a Freemason? No, I'm not associated with any secret society or mystery school, nor am I affiliated with any government agency. I am an independent rogue spirit that enjoys doing what I do. Now, let's go back to the Sumerian king list, because I'm going to read this to you. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing because it's kind of boring, but just to give you an idea here. After the kingship descended from heaven. Oh, wait, somebody said they wanted me to have a small screen and make this a big screen, so I'll just do this. Here we go. The Sumerian king list. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Aludgar ruled for 36,000 years. Two kings. They ruled for 64,800 years. Then Eridu fell, and the kingship was taken to Bad Tibera. Remember, that's what the mistress was given? That land in southern Iraq? Well, in Bad Tibera, En-Men-Lu-Ana ruled for 43,200 years. En-Men-Gal-Ana ruled for 28,800 years. Dumuzid, the shepherd, ruled for 36,000 years. Three kings, they ruled for 108,000 years. Then Bad Tibera fell, and the kingship was taken to Lara In Lara and Sipad, Zid Anah ruled for 28,800 years. One king, he ruled for 28,800 years. Then Lara fell, and the kingship was taken to Zimber. And Zimber and Men Dura Anah became king. He ruled for 21,000 years. One king, he ruled for 21,000 years. Then Zimber fell, and the kingship was taken to Surapa. In Surapa, Abara Tutu became king. He ruled for 18,600 years. One king, he ruled for 18,600 years. In 5 cities, 8 kings, they ruled for 241,200 years. Then the flood swept over. So that's when the flood happened. 240,000 years of these guys ruling, calling the shots, and then the flood. So I want to talk about that for a minute. Giants, minotaurs, cyclops, hobbits, lion people, Lemurians. We have public access to several humanoids over the past several 100,000 years. What was it really like before the flood? And was technology so advanced that these godlike beings were bouncing their consciousness through different entities? And also, even in the Holy Bible, in the Old Testament, there's a specific passage where Moses talks about the serpents that were embedded in them. The serpents makes me think of the DNA. The junk DNA that we're told that we have, supposedly. I don't think it's junk. Maybe it's dormant. What if that was manipulated for exactly like it's talked about in these Sumerian translations, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Atrahasis? You know, it's also interesting because you read some of these other Sumerian scriptures, and these Anunnaki sound like people. I mean, they sound like people with high sex drives and that don't have the best of morals, in my opinion. So I haven't read all of them yet, but the ones that I've read seem, very promiscuous, and they don't really seem to be up to the 21st century Western side of civilization as far as values and morals, in my opinion. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but let's go back to the 240,000 years for a minute here. 241,200 years before the flood. The pyramids, these giant megaliths, Machu Picchu, Göbekli Tepe. I think I said that close to correct this time. What were they like when they were built? Do you think that the pyramids at one point were covered in gold and limestone? And what was inside the pyramids? And how about those incredible Egyptian petroglyphs that show giant light bulbs with energy, with light inside of them, spiraling? There's no smoke stains in the pyramids. So if there wasn't electricity back then, how did they see in there? The pyramids were probably a combination of energy grids, like literally power plants, and also for the elite, for the illuminated, the initiated, certain rooms at specific times lined up to particular stars. They might have been able to dimensionally jump, like a Stargate, but at the astral level. I've had out-of-body experiences. I've gone so far out into the astral realms before that I looked at the entire universe, or maybe it was just a galaxy, but it seemed as if it was the entire universe, about the size of a grapefruit. It was incredible. And I've talked to you guys about that experience before. If you haven't heard me talk about it, I brought it up on several podcasts, and I'll talk about it again. It was mind-blowing. It's like the movies you watch where at first it starts off from the ground and then it just goes further and further and further out, bird's eye view, and then all of a sudden, planets are the size of pieces of sand, and then galaxies are the size, just smaller and smaller, smaller. It was amazing. If you've seen the film Doctor Strange, I wasn't that impressed with the movie, but there was two parts in particular that I remember that were just eerie how accurate they are when you have an out-of-body experience. They did really good. Special effects have gone a long way. And also, on that note, I want to close out. There's a few experiences that I've had in my life with things that I can't fully understand and explain yet that I am tempted to share with you guys. I'm just interested to see what the what the trolls are going to say. So I might save that for the future. But have you guys ever seen the film Total Recall? The first one where Arnold Schwarzenegger is trying to get through customs. So he's got like this android suit on. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's a big guy. So imagine a lady being bigger than him. And this face is, he's literally got the full body costume on. And then he starts like twitching out when the security guard asks him if he's, if he has any fruits or vegetables. And he starts going, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden the face just goes, and Arnold comes out and he's like, ah! Well, that part right there where he like literally sheds an old body and comes out of that, just kind of the way that it was orchestrated in the theater, in the film, that's a very small piece to this encounter that I had, just to kind of give it a parallel. And another thing to add to that is, if you've ever been to a stadium where it was a football game, a soccer game, or whatever, a huge stadium, and people start doing the wave, that was also a part of this experience. Imagine being a part of like this giant archetype where everything is inside of it, essentially. And it's like feeding off of everything inside of it. And once you get in there, time becomes everlasting. You think you're in there for eternity. And it freaks you out because you can't move unless it allows you to move. And then you notice that it's like all of a sudden you're in this arena, just as a symbolic mindset to think of it as. And the people that are all in it and associated with it and connected with it, they're not able to move until the wave hits them. Okay, and so once the wave hits them, then all of a sudden they're able to move. That was another part of the experience that I had. It was very frightening. It was the most frightening experience I've ever had, and the most fascinating experience that I've ever had. And it made me think about some of the books that I've read on shamanism, and about how some of the ancients and natives, for some of their ceremonies, they would literally go into this like dream state, astral realm, where they would get eaten by like these giant monsters, and then they'd come back out on the other side. That's kind of what it was like, you guys. So I'll share more in details down the road. But I want to get your take on that. What is your thought on that specific experience? Has anything like that ever happened to you? Instead of going out of body, it was almost like going inside of your body, but yet your body was inside of something else, like, I guess if you look at things as, I don't know, how do I put this? A reflection off of a reflection off of a reflection, etc. Just these continual cycles. And you've got these different vibrations, and at the top is what you strive for. The apex is the highest point, and then everything just continues to go below that, and the vibrations get denser and denser and denser and denser and denser and denser. It was kind of like going into that, it's kind of and getting, it's like something was sucking you down. Instead of going into a higher realm, it took you into a deeper realm. And I wonder if that's what hell is. I wonder if that's what purgatory is, or what some of the elderlies described, even through biblical stuff, non-biblical. I mean, you guys know me, I'm not religious by any means, far from it. I appreciate those that are, as long as they respect others' beliefs. I think we all have the right to believe in what we want. And I told you guys that many times. But let's go back to what happened after the flood now. I was digressing there. After the flood, had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven, the kingship was in Kis, and Kis, Gusur, became king. He ruled for 1,200 years. Kulasini Baal ruled for 960. There's some other records that say 900 years. Nangislaslama ruled for 670 years. There's some other documents there that say 420. And I could go down this and, each line by line, but what I just want to bring and conceptualize to the table is, we read the Old Testament about these people after Adam that lived for almost 1,000 years, and we think that that's just so far out. And it is, compared to how long people are living now. What would it have been like back then with the gravity, too? Was gravity different? Was the atmosphere different? Was less radiation brought in from the stars? Less environmental pollution? Plus the genetic tampering? There's a lot going on. There's a lot we're not being told, but I really appreciate being able to dissect these specific documents that we can have access to now without going to the Oxford University or to some specific museum or some private collection. It's nice to be able to just log on, read the credits, read about who actually did the translations, and then if people want to, they can do the research on who those people are and what their backgrounds are. If, for the real conspiracy theorist that thinks that just because they went to the Oxford University, they're going to be a Freemason, which means they're not going to tell you the truth. Far from it. Far from that. Now, let's look at many of these buildings around us the architecture is incredible. A lot of those are built by Freemasons, and they know what they're doing. I mean, they're carpenters for a reason. So I think instead of throwing, it's like a food fight. We're throwing food at people because they're a Freemason or because they consider themselves a Zionist or a Jew or a Muslim or an atheist or a pagan or a Christian. It's all about labels, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm going to label that guy as that, so he can't be good because I don't agree with him. I mean, do you know anybody that you agree with 100% of the time? I doubt any of you guys agree with me 100% of the time. And if you do, hey, that's awesome, but still kind of strange, I mean, I don't know of anybody that I can just continue to agree with. There's people that I agree with most of the time, and I don't know what the percentage point is, but it's nice because even if I don't agree with somebody, I can look at things from their perspective and understand where they're coming from and get a whole new meaning on what my beliefs are. It's like that whole paradigm that we're in, the positive, negative aspects that create a third strand. It's like the duality creates a higher level of consciousness if you learn how to benefit from it and not get stuck in one of those paradigms to the point of you don't grow. Essentially, I hope that's a good way to conceptualize it and explain it here. With that said, if you guys go to leakproject.com, I have exclusive content on leakproject.com that's available for premium members, and also your contributions greatly support Leak Project. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everybody that has contributed in one way, shape, or form, whether it be becoming a premium member, buying some bumper stickers, leaving a good comment in the comment section, watching the shows on YouTube. I mean, that definitely helps a lot as well. YouTube's a great platform. It's a beautiful platform. We just need different platforms as well so we can continue to reach out to other people, because not everybody goes to YouTube. As great and wonderful as it is, we need other opportunities out there. So if you know anybody in the radio industry that has, some connections, like, for example, Coast to Coast, I mean, they're the largest AM radio station on the planet. I don't know how many hundreds of channels they're on. Does anybody know how they got their start? Like how they actually got connected with different radio stations? I think it'd be fun if we could get Leak Project on AM and FM. So what are your thoughts on that? Be the change you want to see, folks. Have a great day. We're the ones that manipulated our DNA to lower our lifespan. Matter of fact, it talks about that in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So there you have it. At one point in time, our DNA was created to live in perpetuity, and because the manipulator didn't like the way that his slaves were working, well, that's when the lifespan was changed. And I actually even talked about that in a previous podcast that I did. If you haven't listened to it already, I'd definitely make sure to go back and listen to it. It's one of the more recent podcasts, the Sumerian translation. And let's go back to the credits here for a minute, because one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is this. Hey, everybody, this is Rex Barrett League Project. How the heck are you? This specific article that I'm going to be sharing with you here in a minute, or I should say scribe, is thousands of years older than any scripture in the Holy Bible. Now, this specific scribe could be so old and actually go back hundreds of thousands of years, because it is called the Sumerian king list. Now, the Sumerian king list is over 200,000 years in records in detail. Now, one thing we know about the Sumerians is they were it's also what you know. And yes, a lot of it's who you know. Am I a Freemason? No, I'm not associated with any secret society or mystery school, nor am I affiliated with any government agency. I am an independent rogue spirit that enjoys doing what I do. Now, let's go back to the Sumerian king list, because I'm going to read this to you. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing because it's kind of boring, but just to give you an idea here. After the kingship descended from heaven. Oh, wait, somebody said they wanted me to have a small screen and make this a big screen, so I'll just do this. Here we go. We're extremely good at keeping records and track of virtually everything that was important to them. And one of the things that was extremely important to the Sumerians was their lineage. So the Sumerian king list, when you actually read the length of some of these kings of 64,800 years, just that one king rulership is nothing short of extraordinary. It actually would completely revolutionize the mindset of how long we can live. And then you look at our DNA, and then it makes you wonder if the Sumerians were the ones that actually manipulated our not the Sumerians, but the Anunnaki. This was a group of 10 highly educated that were a part of the project. Not to mention all the additional resources and information before that had been compiled, different funding from not only the Arts and Humanitarian Research Board, there's several other ones down there, the University of Oxford, the British Academy, the Hungarian Academy of Science. And I've read a couple comments where people say, well, I'm not going to trust anything from that university because Freemasons are there. So what? Freemasons are all over the place. And Freemasons, a lot of them are very intelligent, and that's why they have specific degrees, because they got to different levels based on, who you